Good morning, Wareham. Social studies time. All right, so here we go. This is a big one. It's the U.S. Constitution.
The Constitution, Chapter 11.
All right, it's a really important document. You'll always hear it on the news, especially if you listen to either the president or certainly Congress will always say, well, it's in the Constitution. The Constitution says so. It's still thrown around a lot in the news. It's really our basic form of laws, how our government's set up, and our big, almost super laws that the whole country has to obey. They're federal laws, not just a state or a city law, which you have to obey too. But these supersede all of them. What do I mean by that? Well, in certain states, they had rules that were unfair to African Americans, the Jim Crow laws. And then they passed an amendment that said you can't have unfair laws and for reasons of the Civil Rights Act, for reasons of race or religion or creed. And that fixed that. So even if the state had the law, it's like, no. The federal law says you can't be unfair because of race. So that's why it's a super law. It's the law above the others. And it also explains, again, how our government is set up. So there are kind of two big things we're going to study during the Constitution. One is how our government's set up. Two, how we make laws. And then there is a third, and that one is the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights were the first 10 fixes to the Constitution, amendments they're called. And they were made right away. That was interesting. A few states, and I think Massachusetts included, said they wouldn't sign the Constitution to become states unless there was a Bill of Rights. And the people promised, the government promised, we'll make a good Bill of Rights. And I would usually not recommend that. Actually, I would never recommend that. Governments usually lie and not make a strong Bill of Rights. They'll make one and won't. They told the truth. They made a strong Bill of Rights, so they need to be complimented for that. Just a fact. Originally, I thought they thought the states' Bill of Rights would work, but then they realized they needed a national one, and they put them in. And they were very strong. They limited the government's power. Usually governments aren't very happy about, hey, we don't need to be that strong. But America does that sometimes. Even today, they don't want too much power over us. Americans want to be free. And that's a good thing. Sometimes maybe it's overdone. But we have the Constitution to help us decide those arguments and decide what should be a law and what freedom means for different people. All right, so we're going to study the U.S. Constitution. Look at that flag up there, right? The American flag for the U.S. Constitution. I am by no means stalling to turn the lights on so you can see the pages better. I wouldn't do that. Okay. I would never do that. All right, here we go. Chapter 11, The Constitution. The American Revolution was won in 1781. The United States was an independent country with 13 states. American leaders had written laws for the country, but there were problems with these first laws. The leaders decided to write a new constitution. In 1787, leaders from 12 of the states went to Philadelphia. There they wrote the United States Constitution at the Constitutional Convention. Before the American Revolution, Great Britain made laws for the 13 colonies. Americans liked the way the British voted for leaders to write laws in Parliament. The United States leaders planned the Constitution so that Americans could help write their own laws. How do Americans do this? The Constitution says that Americans should choose or vote for people to work for them in their government. Our country's laws are made by men and women in Congress. In some ways, our Congress is like Great Britain's Parliament. Americans vote for people who will make laws for them in Congress. There are two houses or parts of Congress. The Senate and the House of Representatives are the two houses of Congress. Men and women who write laws are called senators and representatives. Each state sends two senators to work in the Senate. States with many people send many representatives to work in the House of Representatives. States with fewer people send fewer representatives to work in the House of Representatives. The senators and representatives meet in a building called the Capitol. The Constitution says that Americans should vote for people to be their senators and representatives. Americans help write their own laws by voting for their senators and representatives. Usually we also call representatives congressmen sometimes, even though technically a senator could be a congressman as well. They just call them senator. It's a little more higher position. The Constitution says the president should carry out the country's laws. Americans vote for a president every 4 years. The president also helps make our laws. The White House is where the president lives and works. The Constitution also gives the United States its Supreme Court. 9 justices or judges work in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court justices decide whether our laws agree with the Constitution. Just to be clear, too, the president cannot make a law. He signs them into existence, or he can veto them, so in that way he helps. But he doesn't write the laws, Congress does, just so you know. The White House, the Capitol, and the Supreme Court buildings are in the city of Washington, D.C. Important government leaders live and work in the capital city. Together, Congress, the President, and the Supreme Court make up the 3 branches of government. The Constitution gives our country these 3 branches. Each branch has separate powers. Congress is the branch with the power to write laws. The President leads the branch that has the power to carry out the laws. The Supreme, by the way, that's called the executive branch. The Supreme Court is the branch that decides whether the laws agree with the Constitution. And so we will go over the names of these next week. We'll get more details with that. Some of our leaders were not happy with the Constitution when it was written in 1787. The Constitution did not say that Americans had freedom of religion. The Constitution did not say that Americans had freedom of the press. Freedom of the press means the government cannot tell people what they can say in newspapers and books. In 1791, our leaders added 10 amendments or new laws to the Constitution. These 10 amendments are called the Bill of Rights. What are some of these rights? Every American has the freedom of religion. Every American has freedom of the press. The Bill of Rights gives every American many freedoms. Since 1791, 17 more amendments have been added to the Constitution. Our Constitution now has 27 amendments. These amendments were added because our leaders wanted laws to be fair to all Americans. As our country changes, more amendments may be added to the Constitution. Today, our Constitution is more than 200 years old. The leaders of 1787 gave us good laws. These laws helped the United States become a great country. So our Constitution is a great document, and it can be changed. It's hard to consider it a great document when it allowed slavery. But they did get rid of it because it was allowed to change in the 13th Amendment. That's why I consider it a great document, because it can fix the mistakes it had originally. All right, so thank you, and do your work this week. And there is a open response for Friday on freedom of the press. All right, please use metal. Give me a good paper. Bye, guys. America!